Okay, Keith here. To go ahead and kind of I got some questions and wanted to clarify some things that, when we were doing chords, they're saying, well, I can't really see what you're doing sometimes, and with the triads. So I want to give you some advice on how to kind of tackle this first. So let me just give you a little background. When I started guitar lessons, they used to give you a book and you'd sit there and you'd learn notes and how to count and how to read music. And that's not a bad thing. However, when you're learning guitar first, I always recommend that you do a couple things first. It's going to save you a lot of kind of aggravation and put you in a better position. One is to understand the first 4 basic theory lessons that I gave you so that you can figure things out for yourself. The most important thing nowadays is not to be able to read music that someone can pass to you on a piece of paper. You need to understand chord symbols, which we talk about that, and then also how to understand and build major scales and key centers and things like that. Now, first off, don't be proud of something you don't know. To read music is a great thing, and the reason it evolved is because obviously in the 1800s you couldn't take your cassette recorder or any digital recorder and record music. Yeah, and you had to write it down, and there had to be a way to pass it from one person to another. Now, it's still a great skill. You can do arranging. You can visit and understand a lot of traditional music, classical music that you don't want to miss. So I'm not encouraging you not to do it. I'm just encouraging you not to take the time to do it at first. Push it out 6 months or a year after you get started, and then start putting the pieces together where when you see a certain C note, you know it's here, and how to do rhythm and all those things that come along with reading music, because it's going to open up another world to you. Like I said, you may write parts for saxophones and horns and oboes or whatever. It's a great thing to know. But I want you to first, it's going to do you the most good if you learn how to spell chords first. So if someone says, here's a C chord, you know that I need a C, an E, and a G. So the way you do that is you learn that musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay? And then you learn what a whole step is, which is on the guitar, it's 2 frets, and what a half step is. On the guitar, it's 1 fret. Okay? And whole steps and half step are covered, I think it's in lesson 2 or 3. And if you can visualize a piano, when you see 2 white keys side by side, that's a half step. And when you see 2 white keys with a black key in between, okay, the distance from the white key to the black key is a half step, or 2 adjacent white keys. This occurs naturally in music between E and F and B and C. And remember from the lesson, if you'll take the time to watch it, you'll be able to understand the notes on the guitar then. If you know, well, let me just digress, and I should have said this point. If you're on a whole step like between F and G, there's 1 note in between, which is the higher one named flat. A flat lowers the note a half step, or the lower note sharp. So between F and G, the same note is F sharp and G flat. Has the same sound. Same between A and B. There's A sharp and B flat. Now between B and C, there's only 1 fret on the guitar. And on the piano, there's no black key in between. Between C and D, there's C sharp and D flat. Okay, so those things you need to know. And the reason is when I'm saying, okay, well, the C chord, let's take, for instance, the first string. So I don't want to give you any new chords today. I want you to understand how to figure out the names of the notes on the guitar and how to figure out some chords by knowing what notes are in them. Now, you do have to go back and review lessons 1, 2, and 3. It'll give you a deeper understanding. But let's say, for instance, you know that the open strings are E, B, G, D, A, and E. Well, between E and F, there's no note in between. For our purposes, right between E and F on the piano, the keys are side by side. On the guitar, from an open string to the first fret, that's a half step. Same with on the piano between E and F. So if I'm open string E and I go up 1 fret, that's F. If I go up 2 frets, that's G, because a whole step is 2 half steps. Now, if I go up 1 fret, that's that one named sharp, F sharp, or the higher one, G, named flat. So on the 2nd fret, it's F sharp or G flat, G flat. On the 3rd fret, up 1 note from F sharp or G flat, okay, is G. G flat to G, up a half step. You get rid of the flat. If you go up another one, that's G sharp or A flat. You go up another one, get rid of the flat, that's A. You go up another one, that's, you name it the next note, it's A sharp or B flat, okay? If you go up another one, just get rid of the flat, that's B. Now, in between B and C, just like between E and F, there's no other note. So if you're on B and you go up a half step, that's C. And then that whole cycle just continues to repeat itself. And so knowing that, you can go through and know that this is F, this is F sharp, this is G, this is G sharp or A flat, this is A, this is B flat or A sharp, this is B, this is C, C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, and then the guitar repeats itself again. So you just got to know where the half steps are and where the whole steps are. Well, we just went over that. Now, you can go up and figure out if you know this is open B, well, between B and C, there's only 1 fret. So the first fret is C. Then you go C sharp, D, D sharp or E flat, E. Now, between E and F, there's no white key, and there's only a half step in between there. So E to F. Okay. Now, you can do it that way, going this way, okay, but it's going to give you a lot more facility if you do it like you know, like you could probably go E, B, G, D, A, E, right? We'll do that on the first fret. F, C, and use flat names. It's a little bit harder. A flat, E flat, B flat, F. G flat, B, E, A, D flat, G flat, G, D, B flat, F, C, A flat, so on and so forth, all the way up the neck. And you can kind of play games, you know, like what's on the 5th fret, okay? Without looking, well, you got A, C, or A, E, C, G, D, and A. So you can do things like that, and that way, when somebody says, play me a C chord which has the notes C, E, and G, you can figure out where those notes are. Like, okay, well, here's an E. Well, what note's that? Well, that's C, and then that note's there, G. So you need to be able to figure out the names of the notes on the guitar. And then also, too, you need to be able to understand the formulas for chords. And I showed you 2 ways in those beginning lessons of how to do it. You can do it with intervals. You can build major chords or major thirds, which are 4 half steps, on top of minor thirds, which are 3 half steps. And every chord has a little formula like that, made of major and minor thirds. If you know, once you master major and minor thirds and memorize the formula, take you about 30 minutes, you'll be able to spell any triad, even any 7th chord if you take it that much further. And then the other way I showed you was to spell chords with key signatures, and that's even easier. So you want to go back and get that, really understand that, because it's so valuable. Instead of taking the first couple months and years of learning how to read music really well, is take the time to understand chord forms, how they're built, what notes comprise chord forms, how to build scales, like what makes a major scale, what's the intervallic relationship. It's always the same: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. If you start on any of your first notes, E, F, G, A, B, C sharp, okay? Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So you can pick any note and put that formula on it. You can do it on 1 string, and it's good to play 1 string scales, which we'll get to eventually. But you'll be able to know what notes are in every major scale. So take the time before you go on trying to learn miscellaneous things, is get to understand how do you build chords, understands minor seconds, minor thirds and major thirds. What are the formula for major, minor, diminished, augmented, and some seventh chords, so that you can figure out what notes should be in that chord. And then when you're learning on the guitar, you'll be able to find where the notes are by using the same information that you had. You can learn to read music just a little bit later. Look, don't be proud of it. You know, I always come down on those guys that say, well, I learned and I don't really read. Well, you know, not knowing something is never nothing to be proud of. It's just you have to prioritize what's the best order to learn things. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I think this will help you tremendously if you just pause for a second and really learn that stuff first. It's like when you go driving, the first thing they give you a driver's license, they give you a license, you got to mentor with somebody who plays, and then they give you a book and go, here, learn the rules first. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing. Learn the rules first. Okay, you'll get better at driving and all that stuff just a little bit later, but learn the rules first, understand the theory behind it, and then apply that theory to what you learn and what you can help yourself, because then an amazing thing happens. You'll be able to teach yourself, okay? And when you start hearing things and listening to more music, you'll see these things, how it all comes together. So I really wanted to do the chord lesson on that, just get you moving in that direction to learn just some basic theory. Look, man, and as I've said in all those things, music theory is really, really easy stuff. Okay, it really is. The oral recognition of it is what takes the most skill. Okay, when you can hear chords, but it becomes easier the more and more you do it. So, you know, take the time, learn that stuff. It's not rocket science. If you can count to 10, you can learn music theory and spell chords and understand scales. You know, if you need a little help, let me know. Put a question down below, and you know, we'll go from there. So let's use this as our chord lesson today and see if you can take the time to learn those things. Go back and watch those and figure out the names of the notes on the guitar. Okay, thanks a lot for watching.